Okay, so I wanted to talk about the Joker. Um, so I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this. I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this, but I think the Joker is a really bad comic book movie. Hear me out. Hear me out. Before you go down to the comments section, hear me out. The Joker is a great movie. Joker's a great movie. I think it's terrific. I think it's really brilliantly directed. I think the one thing I forgot to mention is, and I don't know why, because this is one of my first thoughts in the cinema while watching the movie, and I said it to my buddy Chris, who took me. Thanks, Chris. Um, but I forgot to mention in my review for some reason. One of the really, really clever things I like about this movie is the fact that it makes you laugh in such a way, whereas like you're uncomfortable. Um, a lot of the scenes in the film that make you laugh aren't necessarily funny scenes, but they make you laugh of sort of like this sort of weird type of uncomfortable feeling. And it makes you feel a lot like Arthur in the film, because obviously he has a condition where he laughs uncontrollably in uncomfortable situations. And I found myself laughing uncomfortably at many of the scenes where I normally wouldn't have laughed. And so that's I thought was really interesting and a really good way to sort of get you inside, in many ways, the mind of Arthur. It is a really, really interesting character. Now, the reason why I don't call Arthur the Joker in this movie is because he's just not the same character. Like if you've read any of the source material, he's not the Joker at all. It's not the same. It's not even recognizable as the same character. The only similarities are he laughs and he looks like a clown, right? That's pretty much where it ends. Now, hyperbole allowance. But basically, the fundamental difference with this character, Arthur Fleck, as he's called in the Joker of comic mythology, is that the Joker's not necessarily insane. The Joker doesn't have any sort of like definitively diagnosable mental conditions. The Joker is a sort of enigma, um, so to speak, in that the Joker is not necessarily crazy. Well, I mean, he's obviously crazy, but he's not necessarily clinically insane. He's a sort of anarchist on steroids with a sense of humor. Um, the Joker has a very distinct philosophy that makes him the way he is. He's not subject to any sort of mental illness. The Joker is not a victim. The Joker is a force of nature. Uh, he's crazy by any like sane man's definition, but he's not necessarily like subject to any mental conditions that are diagnosable, obviously, by the doctors at Arkham. He is a sort of like he is an idea in the way that like Jared Leto is not an idea, but the actual character, the Joker, is an idea in that he is the embodiment of chaos. He's an agent of destruction. He embodies a philosophy that makes him the way he is. He is the personification of a philosophy in many ways. He's not so much a person as he is a personification of an idea. Um, Much in the same way you get characters like death or eternity or chaos or order and stuff like this in the Marvel universe. In many ways, the Joker is a mortal personification of one of these concepts. Now, obviously, the Joker does have a physical, tangible background. He has to exist because he is ultimately human. Um, but we never know what it is. We never get to look into the Joker's definitive past. And the purpose of this is to sort of make sure that it's not the Joker's never humanized, because once you know his history, once you know what he is, what he comes from, he's no longer the embodiment of this idea. He's no longer an abstract being as much as he is a person. And the problem with this film, in terms of a comic book adaptation, because again, this is an excellent movie. Um, the difference is that Joker is not supposed to be any sort of he's not supposed to be recognizable as a human being. He's not somebody you could walk past on the street. The Joker is beyond. He's supposed to be beyond any sane man's comprehension, and he's incredibly intelligent. He's a manipulator. He's a liar. Everything is as he orchestrates it. The difference between this Joker that we see on film here, by Joaquin Phoenix, who does an excellent job. And I'm not familiar with much of Joaquin Phoenix's work, but I can certainly color myself a fan after that performance. I mean, that was beautiful. But the Joker's not a victim. He doesn't stumble about aimlessly. Things don't happen to him. Things happen because of him, if that makes any sense. The Joker is the architect of he is the conscious architect of the sort of social dismay, the sort of unrest that Gothamites feel. In this movie, everything that happens to him is chance. The only thing that he does is eventually embrace these chance happenings that occur to him. The Joker is not an active agent, he's a reactive agent, which is, I suppose, philosophically is a really fundamental difference in character. A reactive agent is somebody who things happen to, and he acts according to the things that happen to him. An active agent, I'm not patronizing you, of course, you know what I'm talking about, but an active agent is the Joker. That everything that happens is because the Joker wants it to happen, or he orchestrates it to happen in such a way, until Batman defeats him at the end of the book, because that's how it has to end. And I really think it's interesting the way that spoilers. I really think that it's interesting the way that the sort of anarchy that the Joker accidentally, by the way. So the philosophy of the Joker, you think he's like, the Joker sometimes has a point. Like in The Killing Joke, the Joker kind of has a point in that probably everybody could be the Joker if they were put in the right situation, or the wrong situation if you prefer. But we all have the ability to break. We all have the ability to lose ourselves due to circumstance. And the Joker, that is his point. That's his philosophy. That's his mission statement. Is anybody can be Joker. Joker doesn't see himself as crazy or as the victim or anything like that. The Joker is just simply the Joker. He is the idea that anybody can be crazy like him. And of course, Batman is the antithesis of that, and that's what makes that dynamic so fascinating. But I think it's interesting that the philosophies that he didn't even create in this universe, he just sort of, by happenstance, the public made him a symbol. He was made a symbol. The Joker was made a symbol by the public because of their sort of malcontent with the way the system worked. And of course, I mean, the Gotham City in that film is beautiful. In that it's captures the essence of Gotham, I think, really wonderfully. It of course is missing the Gothic architecture that it gets its name from, but it captures Gotham's social circumstance. It captures the grit in the sort of ghetto-esque feeling of Gotham really well. And the majority of that film was shot in Chicago, as I understand. However, I saw in the background of one shot was the Manhattan Bridge, like a bridge that was definitively the Manhattan Bridge in New York. So I don't know if that was, they just sort of they played around with the CG a little bit to sort of like blend cities together to make it look like a different city. And they sort of did this in The Dark Knight too, where they took, not The Dark Knight, which was also filmed in Chicago, but The Dark Knight Rises was shot in New York, and it's very clearly New York, but the CG artists sort of go in there when they do skyline shots and mess things around, sort of bring water in where it doesn't belong and change the sort of landscaping and buildings a little bit. And it doesn't really work in that movie, but it does in this, if indeed that's what they're doing. It looks really good. This is a really, really beautifully shot, very well done film. And of course, we have recurring set pieces like the staircase. But it's yeah, I can't tell you enough how interesting this movie is. I wasn't at any point bored. I was always interested in the plot unfolding. I was always taken by the sort of unfoldings, the revelations, as it were. And of course, there are points where you can figure out what's going on. But I think overall the film does a really good job at like unlaying things in surprising manners that you wouldn't necessarily pick up on. Um, but yeah, the Joker is he sort of starts this movement by accident, and that's not really what the Joker is. That doesn't embody the Joker. The Joker is the Joker's mission is to prove a point. That's why he's so interested in Batman. Batman is the antithesis of what he is. He feels like he needs to prove a point to Batman, and that's why he does everything he does. Without Batman, the Joker is not the Joker. And obviously, in this film, he's literally a different person. Like it's not like a different interpretation of the same character. It's literally a different person. And if this was a worse film, I wouldn't be able to roll with that because I would think it would be dishonest in many ways. If this wasn't such a spectacular film, I would say that it's really dishonest to market a film as being based off a comic book property that it has no bearing to, based off a character that there's no correlation to. But this film is fantastic and it's worth every penny to go to see it. And so I think it makes it okay for me. At least for me, I don't take any real gripe with that. But I think if this were a lesser film, I would think it was gross, cynical, and dishonest to use a property and abuse it in such a way where it's not recognizable as itself. But man, this movie is great. Go see it. And I know I'm still going to get hate comments saying that I'm giving this film too hard a time or I don't understand it or something like this. I understand the film and it's a great film and it's an interesting film, and it's a really good commentary I think on human nature, like what we are willing to do when we're pushed to desperation, but also on society as a whole, what society feels. But I think it brings up a good point about like who people are fundamentally. We all seem to assume that we're good people, but when placed under these desperate circumstances, how many of us actually abide by the philosophies we preach? I suppose is the point of the film. How many of us are actually embodiments of we supposedly represent? How many of us actually abide by our supposed moral philosophies when at our breaking points? And obviously, this film has a very cynical take on that. I think a lot of us are, some of us at least, are fundamentally good people. Some people are fundamentally good. I don't know that I am. I don't know that I am. I've never been pushed to such a point where I've been tested in such a manner. But I believe that there are fundamentally good people who do embody idealism, who do embody their moral philosophies to the point of their demise, to the point of beyond desperation. But ultimately, the film has a point that most of society probably isn't that way. Most of society probably would fall to this sort of barbarian-esque behavior, this sort of anarchist idea. When people feel desperate, they don't respond with thought. When people are angry, when people are fed up, they don't respond to things intellectually. They don't respond to things intelligently. They respond to things impulsively. They respond to things with barbarian force. It's in many ways a product of our evolution, despite the fact that we are as far as we know, we're the most intelligent beings on our planet. we are we are just overhyped apes in many ways. We are glorified primates, and the Joker is I suppose the exploration of that idea in many ways. And I suppose different people will have different interpretations. Different people will have different ideas of what the Joker's trying to say. But to me, that is what this film represents. And I think it's a really good film. I think it's excellent, and I'll be sharing this film or this video with friends of mine, because I think that only in an edited circumstance am I going to be able to coherently express my very, I think, complex thoughts and feelings toward this piece. It's a fantastic picture, this film. It's really brilliant. But yeah, that's my review of the Joker, my sort of impromptu review. Keep in mind, the film for me ended less than 30 minutes ago, so it's very fresh. I still probably haven't gotten my full thoughts together, but this is sort of me going off the cuff with no script, just sort of saying how I feel. And I hope that you enjoy. I hope that you've heard me out, and that you've not just run down to the comment section and yelled at me for a bit.